Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning into this video. When I first started the channel, the majority of all my SX24s were already pretty heavily modified. So I kind of wanted to take on a new project with a completely stock RC, modify it, build it up, capture it on video, and share it with all you fine folks. I chose the Deadbolt because they're a pretty good RC to modify by doing minimal stretches, adding bigger tires and things like that with minimal modifications to the body. So that's the reason why I went with the Deadbolt. And obviously I chose the green Deadbolt, which kind of leaves me in a little bit of a dilemma because I've already got a green Deadbolt. Not sure that I want two of them. And obviously the Deadbolt comes in two different colors, green and red. Well, I've already got the red Deadbolt. So I guess the first dilemma that I've came up with is, what am I going to do about the color? So I've got the green, I've got the red. I need something a little different. So, alakazam, alakazoo. And poof. Yeah, that looks much better. And not only am I a RC enthusiast, but I'm also a magician. So you can check out my other YouTube channel, TCB Mystical Magic. I make elephants disappear, all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay, so the first modification I made obviously is cosmetic. I painted it black, magically painted it black. And obviously I removed the cage and taped up everything that I did not want to paint. Threw some tape on the driver's helmet there, and this helmet screws off. It's if you can see it, that little screw right there, just undo that, the helmet comes out. But yeah, I just put a little bit of tape around his goggles so that wouldn't get painted. Taped up the cab area there, took the cage off, hit it with some paint. The paint I used, Rust-Oleum, paint and primer, bonds to plastic, wood, metal, and more. Got 3 coats on it, and I kind of had success using this paint whenever I painted the roof on this Deadbolt. Exact same paint, just a different color. But I've rolled this RC numerous times. It's been on its top pretty hard, plenty. And so far, I mean, there's not even a scratch on it. So the paint seems to hold up pretty well. Didn't have any issues with the red. But yeah, I just taped everything up, painted it, let it dry for a couple hours, hit it with a second coat, let that dry for a couple hours, and hit it a third time. So it's got 3 layers of paint on it. Well, now that I got it painted, I guess it's time to do some performance modifications. I plan on, in this video, I'm going to upgrade the links. I'm going to make them high clearance links. And while I got it, I'm going to change the front link setup from a 3-link set to a 4-link setup. And I'm going to go ahead and do a stretch in the front. I'm going to take out the, when I take the Deadbolt front links out, I'm going to replace them with the front links from the C10. I'm going to upgrade the servo and the axles. And I'm going to throw some wheel spacers on there as well, just to give it a little bit of width. Pretty much the installs are fairly simple. There is a couple things, if you're not familiar with the portal axles and things like that, you might need to know. But anyway, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get this body off, take the wheels and tires off, and get started. Stay tuned. Okay, I got the body off, got the wheels and tires off, the wheel hexes, wheel pins, everything's ready to start coming apart. I've got my links over here, my Enjoy links, high clearance links. I know how you guys like to see people open packages and whatnot, but I did forget to do that on these. I do apologize. Then I've got my RC all-wheel drive portal axles. They come with a front and rear axle, some brass wheel hexes, and some extra bearings, which is always good. And then I've got my Endura servo, and all the other servos that I've put into my RCs are the Endura Emax. This one is the Endura digital servo. I'm not sure what the difference is going to be, but I guess I'll find out momentarily. But installing these, first off, if you're just replacing the axles, it's a fairly simple install. All you would do on the front is remove your bottom shock from your axle, remove that link from the axle, and remove your top link from the axle. Same on this side. And unplug your servo, and it just comes right out, and then you just put the axle back into its place. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove everything. If anything comes up that I need to show you guys, I will stop and show you what's going on. Stay tuned. Okay, I went ahead and got the links taken off just to get them out of my way. And on the top of the diff, I took out the two screws on the top of the diff cover. And once you do that, just turn it sideways, and then that just pops right off. So whenever you go to put it on your portal axle, it goes back on the exact same way. Just pop it back in whenever you're ready to put it on there, put your screws in, voila. That's all there is to it. Okay, I got the drive shaft, the male portion of the drive shaft removed off the stock axle. It needs to go back on to the portal axle. Okay, I got the drive shaft back in, but before I put this piece back into place on top of the diff, I went ahead and removed the brass diff cover that comes on these, just because it's goldish color, and I'm kind of looking for, I'm going for an all black look. But while I got that off, just to show, you know, your differential gears are all metal. And I had these brass diff covers from somewhere, I don't even know what they came from. I don't even remember the brand. But if you're looking for brass diff covers that are a different color than that, just go to Amazon and just do a search for SCX24 black diff cover. They're pretty common. And usually whenever I get these RC all-wheel drive portal axles, I usually do replace the diff covers on them just to make it more of a solid color. Like for example, on my red Deadbolt red axles, I went ahead and the color doesn't match perfectly, but it is, I think it looks better than the goldish color that came on there. So I replaced the diff cover on this just to make it match a little bit better. I do have one RC that's running these portal axles that I didn't change the diff cover on, and that was this one on my C10, just because, I mean, the axles are silver and the diff covers have kind of a goldish look to them. And I don't know, silver and gold, I'm kind of a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer fan, so I just thought I would keep the original diff cover on this one. So, but if you know, you know. Okay, I got this axle ready to throw back on. Got my black diff cover on there. I definitely think that makes it look a little better. This top piece that was on the stock axle, got it off that one. On the portal axle, got the drive shaft hooked up. It's ready to go. Just a comparison here between axles real quick. You can see just by looking at that, the stock or the portal axles are slightly wider due to the gearboxes on the end of the axles. Definitely a little heavier. Well, they're quite a bit more heavy than the stock axle because they're aluminum. I thought they'd be a little bit heavier than they are, but definitely a little heavier, much better ground clearance due to the portal box on the end of the axles that raises it up. And anytime, if you're going to add ground clearance and add height, it's always a good thing to add a little bit of width. And again, they are obviously wider, and adding the height that the portals give you and the bigger tires, the added width that you get, it still isn't quite enough for me. And that's why I'm going to be throwing on wheel spacers as well. And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. But folks, I'm going to go ahead and put my links on the frame and then hook them back up to this. I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, so I got my rear links remounted to the frame, and if you're replacing these axles and you're not replacing your links, this is what it would look like, because all you basically did was removed your rear axle by removing the 4 end pieces of your links, popping it out of the drive shaft, and removing your shocks. So usually whenever I go to put this back together, the first thing that I do is I take the top links and I mount them to this point right here on each side. And once I get my top links mounted, then I go ahead, slide the metal portion of the drive shaft back into that. And then I'll go ahead and attach my shocks. And with it upside down, I'll just go ahead and attach my bottom links to where they go right here. Okay, I got the rears installed. Again, it's not a very hard process. Got the links on, got my rear drive shaft hooked back up. Portal axles are on. Time to move to the front. And while I'm working on the front, I'm gonna go ahead and, when I remove this, I'm gonna go ahead and upgrade the servo, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Folks, stay tuned, I'll be right back. Okay, I got the front axle removed with the servo still intact on top of it. And again, all I did was remove the links from the frame and unplug the servo, undid the shocks, and it slides right out. And if you're replacing your axle and you're not upgrading your servo, then just like the rear, you had to remove that top cover off your rear differential. You'd have to do the same thing with your servo, just by removing these top screws on the top, and it slides out. And then off your servo horn, you would remove this screw off your steering arm from the back. It screws in from back here because the front axle comes with an aluminum arm already, and all you would do is just place that back, well, doggone it, back behind that piece, screw it back in, pop your servo horn or your servo tray back onto here, screw it down, and just reinstall. It'd be pretty easy. I'm gonna replace my front links with C10 JLU links, which are a little bit longer than the Deadbolt links, just to give it a little bit of a stretch. So that's the links I'm going to replace it with. So I'm going to stretch it, about yay far, about that much. And since I'm replacing the links, I'm also going to pop out this drive shaft from the inside of the RC. I'm going to replace it with this Endura metal drive shaft because it's from the C10. The drive shaft's a little bit longer, just to match up with the links. But yeah, with all that, I'm going to go ahead and start getting this front axle set up and get the servo on it. Again, it's the Endura digital servo. I'll get it opened up, show you what all it comes with, and we'll take it from there. Stand by. Okay, the Endura servo comes with the servo and an excessively long cord. Your servo horn, and I know that one fatter screw is for your servo horn. Not sure what the other 2 screws are for. It comes with all these white plastic thingies and a few more screws. I've yet to figure out. I've installed many of these. Have no use for this little bag whatsoever. And then it comes with your tray. So I'm going to go ahead and get the tray opened up. Get the horn or the servo put on the tray, and folks, I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Okay, I got the servo mounted to the tray, and where the servo horn connects right here, that should be on the driver's side of the vehicle. If you flip the servo upside the other way, upside down, and mounted it to the tray, then this would be to the left, and that would be incorrect. So just like for this, that's the stock servo, and it is more driver side. So that's the correct way to put that back on. And I've not ever dealt with the digital Endura servo. I'm assuming it's fairly similar to the Emax, but I do know on the Emax, It's a little bit wider than your stock servo, and whenever you're kind of hard to tell on this because there's nothing hooked up, but whenever it's connected to the top of your axle and you're flexing up and down, it rubs on your frame, which this would, looks like it would be close, kind of be a tight fit. But what some people do is they cut that down, cut these top edges off of the servo, and yeah, so I normally don't cut mine down. I just take a Dremel, make sure I don't Dremel through my wire. Yeah, I just Dremel it out, and that just gives you better clearance to fit between your frame rails whenever you're flexing. So, yeah, just a tip. Do it on both sides, obviously. Okay, I've went ahead and attached the longer C10 links to the frame of the chassis here. So that part's good to go. I got my front axle set up. I got the servo mounted to the top. I went ahead and disconnected this steering link just so I could screw in my servo horn. That does screw in from the back. That's the reason why I disconnected that. So all I've got left to do now, I also replaced the front diff cover on this. And just a note too, this isn't a video on diff cover replacement, but anytime you do take off a diff, if you're the cover, if you're going to replace it with another cover, just don't forget to take the bearing out of the original diff cover and put it back into the diff cover that you're going to use. Or if you have an extra bearing laying around, just don't forget to put that bearing back in there. But all I've got to do now is reattach my steering arm, hook everything back up together, and I'm going to hook up my servo horn last, and I'll get to that here in just a minute. That's just a part of aligning the servo. But folks, stay tuned and we'll throw all this stuff back together. I'll be right back with you. Okay, I got the front end put back together. I've still yet to hook up my servo horn. That'll be the last thing that I do. I haven't even plugged in the servo yet. I'm going to go ahead and put the wheels and tires back on this thing before I get into this, finishing off the servo. But just a quick note, I'm going to be adding 7mm wheel spacers. And this is the, if you can see it in the video there, let me try to enlarge on that. Yeah, that is the wheel nut. So the way those work, whenever you get your wheel pin and your wheel hex and then your wheel back on, this actually goes, and these outer axles here with the threads on them, they're quite a bit longer than stock, so they do protrude out quite a bit outside your wheel. But these go inside your wheel and screw down on this. But if you can see in on the camera there, the inside of your axle is quite a bit fatter than a stock axle. So the problem you run into with these is whenever you're screwing this down, it reaches the fat part of the axle before it connects to your wheel. So your wheels are really loose whenever you use these. You can use a regular wheel nut because there is just enough thread left to where you can get an actual regular wheel nut on that. It's not on there completely secure. If you did happen to do that, I would recommend using some blue Loctite. But I prefer to use these. And so the best way to accommodate the problem with this getting to the fat part of the axle first is I just Dremel down the end, take off a little bit of the length. That way it reaches the wheel before it reaches that fat part. And I just take my wheel tool and get that in there as secure as possible. just take a Dremel and just Dremel the end of it while it's in my wheel tool. You don't have to Dremel off a lot. Yeah, you don't need to Dremel off a lot, but just try to keep that as level as you can. If it's kind of off a little bit, it still works. But yeah, you still got plenty of thread left, and this way it allows that to reach your wheel and fairly tighten your wheel down to where it don't look like your wheel's about to fall off. Okay, I got everything put back together. Still haven't hooked up my servo horn yet. I'm gonna do that last, but I just plugged it back in. So to line up the servo, I'm gonna make sure my steering right here on this knob right here is set to 0. Power on the RC, or excuse me, power on the remote. Then I'm gonna power on the RC. Okay, I just powered it up and I was expecting to hear that center. It didn't make any. Okay, it's working, so I'm assuming it's at center. Again, this is a digital Endura. I've never used one of these, so I'm going to assume that that is the center mark. So the next thing I'm going to do is just try to keep my wheels as straight as possible and hook up my servo horn. Just by, probably easier to keep the wheels on the ground. Okay, I got it on. I think my tires are a little off, doggone it. That'll be close enough. Okay, I got the servo horn plugged up. Didn't get the wheels exactly straight, but it is what it is. But either way, I got steering. That's kind of groovy. Good to have steering. Just a slight turn to the left. That got them straight. Now, the last issue, back to the portal axles. You will encounter this if you go to install these portal axles. You've got your axle shaft and your inner axles. They're coming out. The inner axle comes out to the top of this gearbox, and that's normally where it meets your wheel. But in this case, it comes out and it hits a set of gears. Your axle does. It hits the top set of gears in your portal box, and those top set of gears hit a set of gears beneath that, which the bottom gears are what's connected to your wheel. So in other words, whenever you pull your remote backward, your trigger back to make it go forward, your inner axle is turning in the correct direction when it hits these gears. But whenever these gears hits these lower gears go in reverse. So basically what that means is, here's my remote. I'm going to pull back on the trigger and it goes forward, or excuse me, it goes backward. When I press up on the trigger, it goes forward. So it runs your wheels in reverse. So there's several easy fixes for that. If you've got the newer SCX24s with the newer electronics, this is one of the remotes from that. But you've actually got a switch right here that you can change your direction of travel. So all you would have to do if you was going to install this with one of the newer electronic SCX24s, just flip that switch and it puts it right back to the way it was. The older model SCX24s don't have that. So there's a couple ways that can be fixed. One way is if you went with a Bluetooth capable ESC like the Komodo Lizard or the FuriTech Lizard, you can actually go into the app with the Bluetooth app and you can actually change your direction of travel. Or another alternative is to, I'm going to unplug the battery here before I do this, but your wires here that come from the motor, Let me see if you can see that. On the outer side of your plug, there's 2 pins right there. Just get like a tiny flathead screwdriver, bend those pins back, pull out these wires and reverse them. So put the black to the left, the red to the right, replug it back in, and that should change your direction of travel. So I'm gonna do that real quick and see what happens. Which, I mean, I know what's gonna happen. I've done this once or twice before. Getting these pins pulled back can be a little tedious. Got that one. Try not to do it too much to where you break one. Okay, let's see. I got the red one out and the black. So now I'm going to put the black right there. Put the red. Well, if I can get it in there. Okay, now I got them back in. I'm gonna take a pair of tweezers and kind of push back down on those tabs. Keep it secured in. Plug it back in. Yeah, they're in there. Get in there. Plug back up the battery. So, power up the RC. Or the remote. I keep getting that confused. Power the RC back on. Pull back on it. It goes forward. Problem solved. Well, folks, that's it. Everything's been completed on it. As far as all that excess wire from the servo, yeah, I just kind of folded that up and put a zip tie on it. Whenever, after adding the longer links in the front, whenever it comes down, the servo horn is barely just catching the end of the body here. I don't think that's going to be a big deal, but I'm going to be upgrading the wheels and tires and the suspension on it next, and just depending on how I have the suspension set up, I'll determine then if I decide to notch out any of the body. Obviously my bumper's gone. You do have to remove your bumper if you're going to stretch them. I did on the red Deadbolt come up with a way of keeping a bumper. If you want to maybe check out my stretch option video for the SCX24. But yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. High clearance links, Emax digital servo, which I'll run this thing a time or two and see if there's any difference between that and the Emax. I don't know if there will be, or it doesn't really feel like there is, just operating it here on the table. The wheel spacers, and something I forgot to mention too, if you are new to the SCX24, you got a wheel hex that your wheel mounts onto. Those wheel spacers take the place of that wheel hex. It's just kind of like a wheel hex with an added wheel hex on the outside of it, just to give you a little bit better width. So on this upgrade, I added a significant amount of ground clearance, a significant amount of width, and a tad bit on the wheelbase, probably about 1/4 of an inch on the wheelbase. So again, folks, hope I didn't bore you guys to death too bad on this video. Suspension, wheels, and tires will be next. And then after that, I'm going to upgrade the motor. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route on some of the SCX24s that I've already got. And try out a some new stuff with the ESC, see how that works out. Those videos will be coming soon. Folks, thanks for watching and stay tuned.